Wasters. This is Suburban Time Waster with another podcast review. For this review, I'll be talking about Tomb Raider. No, not the one that started it all, which I'm currently doing a Let's Play of. I'm talking about the 2013 reboot by Crystal Dynamics, where Lara Croft goes on her very first archaeological expedition to find Yamatai, the island of the legendary Queen Himiko. The very island her and her team crash right into. Can Lara escape this mad island and protect her friends? First, I want to give a shout out to Blood Rose Red from Wattpad for requesting this review. Next, I want to point out that everyone familiar with the Tomb Raider franchise knows that the original Lara Croft got her start on an island. Yet, it wasn't until returning to civilization that she chose to pursue a career in archaeology. Now, this is where I get into spoiler territory, so if you want to go into the game fresh, you might want to stop right here. Otherwise, keep on listening. This Lara Croft is the daughter of an archaeologist and is following in her late father's footsteps. She's been given a rare opportunity to work with an already established archaeologist, and it's her first time being out in the field. Something the game doesn't forget, as Lara spends most of the time acting like a scared little girl. When we're first introduced to her, she's hanging upside down in a cave and struggling to break free. Yet, not only does she break free, but she also manages to get herself out of the cave with the tools she comes across. Which is the entire premise of the game. Lara thrusts into a situation she can't control but learns to adapt to. While this might make this version of Lara Croft seem weaker than her original incarnation, keep in mind that Lara is just starting out. She grew up in the safety of a mansion and everything she's learned is in books. This is her first adventure and she doesn't know how to handle herself. Yet, instead of crying in a corner and waiting for rescue, Lara grabs a torch and gets herself out of the cave. Then, when in the open air, grabs a bow and arrow and starts hunting food and shooting down bad guys, doing whatever she can to protect her friends and get off Yamatai. When she and her only surviving friends finally get off the island, the look in Lara's eyes tells us that even though her body left the island, her mind is still there, and her mind will never leave. Just like the original Lara Croft, her experience will shape her into becoming the Tomb Raider. Believe it or not, Yamatai and its ruler, Queen Himiko, are actual real figures in history. Yet the details are vague, as I've tried looking up information about both, and all I could find out was that Yamatai was an island ruled by the shaman Queen Himiko. Despite being the main villain, Himiko's role in this game is more as an obstacle than an antagonist. While you do hear her voice from time to time, and you see her effect on the weather, such as calling thunderstorms to stop rescue planes, everything the game tells you about her is through the documents you collect. Even that is contradictory, as some documents describe Himiko as a cruel tyrant, while others describe her as a fair and just ruler. My personal headcanon is that Himiko started out as a fair and just ruler. Then her ego got the better of her, and she started to dabble in magic to discover if there was a way to rule eternally. Unfortunately, that way happened to be taking over the bodies of innocent people, and little by little, she went insane. Which, sadly, happens to a lot of rulers, save for the using magic to take over the bodies of other people part. The true antagonist of the game is Matthias, Himiko's number one man. However, unlike her faithful subjects known in the game as the Solari, he has no loyalty to Himiko. His goal is to get off this island, and he will do it by any means possible. Even Matthias' own diary shows that he sacrificed his own shipmates just to test if they could get off the island. Matthias has the nerve to compare himself to Lara, who was also killed to get off the island, but Lara didn't sacrifice any of her shipmates to save herself. The only people she killed were the people trying to kill her and her friends. Yet, when Matthias compares them, she doesn't argue. Lara is so traumatized by what she's had to do that she's scared that she has become Matthias, which would be much more impactful if the journals had Matthias start out more like Lara, trying to get him and his friends off the island. Then, as his hope dimmed, he started to care little for his friends and more for himself, making him the monster he is in the game, a warning of the monster that Lara and any of us could become. Yet, despite this little flaw, it doesn't take away from the ending. There are more characters in the game than Lara, Matthias, and Himiko. As I said, Lara is trying to get her and her friends off an island that won't let them leave, which is basically the plot of Lost, but unlike Lost, Tomb Raider doesn't spend much time developing the side characters. The only three characters that really stand out among the crew are Sam, Roth, and Whitman. Sam is the best friend who encourages an unsure of herself Lara. Seeing them interact is one of the most heartwarming aspects of the game. Her carefree personality contrasts well with Lara's more serious nature. Sam's also the only one on the team who believes Himiko exists and becomes the next chosen vessel for the Queen herself. Her capture and Lara's determination to rescue her moved me so much that it brought me to tears. Roth acts as a surrogate father to Lara and helps motivate her to believe in herself. It's through him that we learn about the death of Lara's parents, and, like Sam, also encourages Lara. Except, while Sam encourages Lara before the crash, Roth encourages her on the island. It's because of him Lara keeps on moving and doesn't give up, and while Sam's kidnapping brought me to tears, Roth's scenes with Lara got me choked up. Especially when he sacrifices himself to save Lara from the Solari. Whitman, on the other hand, is a different breed. He's the lead archaeologist on the expedition and a celebrity so big that he's Lara's hero. Needless to say, Whitman comes off that pedestal pretty fast when his documents not only reveal that he's on this expedition for Yamatai to bring back his declining popularity, but he betrays Sam to Matthias purely for fame. So he's the Gilderoy Lockhart of the group, willing to step over anyone to build or protect his reputation. That or Homelander, who I compared to Lockhart in a Hogwarts Legacy video. Yes, there are other characters in the crew, but they barely do anything in the game. Reyes is supposed to be a detective, but Martin Crane shows more detective skills in his retired life than Reyes does the whole game. She spends the entire time laying a guilt trip on Lara, time that could be spent using those cop skills to help the crew survive or try to figure out why they can't leave. Now, since it was Lara who pinpointed them to the island, it's understandable that some of the crew would be mad, but Reyes blames Lara for everything. There's this part where Alex, a man with no combat experience, goes off in search of tools on a savage island with a cult trying to take their lives. Does Reyes stop him? No. She doesn't offer to go in his place because of her experience as a cop or even to come along with him as a guard. Instead, he dies a pointless death and Reyes blames Lara for the whole thing. As for Alex, he has even less of a point in the game except to drool over Lara and die a needless death. His crush on Lara only contributes to his decision to go on such a stupid quest in the first place, and his death was so pointless that it had little to no emotional impact on me. Though at least the crush was shown in one scene instead of being told to you in a document you might never find. Reyes, on the other hand, her entire character development is in the documents scattered around the island. While there are other members of the crew, these characters contribute so little to the plot that the only way I can remember their names is if I look them up on TV tropes. Now, I get that a show is going to have more time to develop their characters than a video game. A lot of these characters are so inconsequential that you can remove them from the game entirely, and the plot wouldn't suffer in the slightest. Many people who've played the original Tomb Raider games were probably expecting a platform/puzzle type of game. Instead, they went for more of a survival mode, where Lara has to hide from enemies and pick them off one by one. If there's no enemies around, you pick off different animals to gain experience who, unlike the animals in the original games, don't attack you. Which has the added effect of making you feel guilty when you shoot them, but the experience is needed if you want to advance throughout the game. That's right, this game has an RPG element where you have to level up Lara and use the points you get to give her new skills at various campfires. Campfires are found all around the island, where you can also use the salvage you gather throughout the game to upgrade various weapons. Though, unlike in the original game, you don't start out with Lara's trademark dual pistols, but a bow and arrow, which was my favorite weapon in the game as it could easily pick enemies off. You can get a singular pistol later along with a sniper and a shotgun, but you don't get the dual pistols until the last boss battle with Matthias, which I thought was brilliant symbolism. Though the boss battle itself isn't really a boss battle so much as a quick time event. Remember those sequences in Telltale games where you had to press the right button for your character to survive? That's how it is in some of the battles in Tomb Raider. And it's not only how it ends, but how it starts. Though, if you're anything like me, the first QuickTime event will take you a few tries because the tutorial tells you where the interactive button is, but not the action button, and you'll mistake the latter for the former until you not only have to Google it, but look at the controls. Speaking of controls, you know that the designated map button is not M like it is in most games? Yes, I'm aware that I can change the controls, but it feels weird that it wasn't automatically the default. And it would probably be a lot funnier to complain about this in a Let's Play instead of a podcast review. As I said earlier, you can fight enemies and you can get hurt. Though, instead of a life bar, blood drips on the screen, and if you lose too much health, the grayscale comes up, but all you have to do is avoid damage for a bit, and it goes back to normal. I'll admit, it's not one of the most practical ways to determine health, as the screen starts to blur and you have trouble seeing where you are. Unfortunately, this effect isn't just for battles. If you walk in a waterfall, the screen becomes blurry and you can't see where you're going. While I can live with the blood effect, the water effect serves no purpose and it really needs to go. While it might seem like this game is just sneaking around and shooting bad guys and animals, there's still a lot of exploring you can do as Lara Croft. For instance, you can find the documents I mentioned throughout the game. These documents give you a lot of background information, such as Matthias' origin story, the history of Yamatai, and extra details on the other crew members. As an aspiring writer, it's one of my favorite parts of the game because I love learning about the characters in the game lore. However, not all of the documents are collected. Some of them come to you when you rest at a campfire, and Lara recites her own journal, giving her thoughts on what's going on, which gives you a neat look inside her head. You have to really watch for these, because the only one I missed on my run was the 8th journal. You can also find relics, GPS catches, take on challenges, and it wouldn't be Tomb Raider without the tombs. Though, I'll admit, it is a little weird that in a game called Tomb Raider, most of the tombs you raid are optional. I can think of only 1 or 2 tombs that are raided in the main storyline, but that's it. However, the optional tombs do come with a puzzle aspect, as you have to observe the area and use it to your advantage to get the treasure. If you miss even one of those collectibles, don't worry about it, because you can use some campfires to travel back to previous locations. Save for one location that doesn't have a transporting campfire, so you have to gather everything while you're there or you're SOL. I have no idea why they designed a whole area of the island that way, but the worst part is you don't even know that's the case unless you're reading a walkthrough. Despite the flaws, this game is addictive and intriguing. A heartbreaking story with a clever mix of history and a worthy addition to the Tomb Raider franchise. Even if there's not much tomb raiding to be found, and the focus is more on survival than puzzles. Yet the game still has a puzzle aspect and stays true to its roots. I give it 8 out of 10, and with that, my time wastings come to an end. I hope you like this podcast enough to give it a like, and if you want to hear more from me, hit that subscribe button.